Everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a nice 9-game slate for you on Fanduel for the main slate. Our top stacks today are going to be Arizona, Colorado, Toronto, and then Milwaukee right-handed hitters. But we can also take a look at Cincinnati's left-handed hitters, St. Louis's left-handed hitters, Atlanta's right-handed hitters, and even the Angels' right-handed hitters. Pretty much limited to Ward and Trout and Ohtani. But as for the bat pitchers we do like today, Shohei Ohtani is going to be the obvious number one. He's been remarkably good against Houston in 3 games. In 2 games, he has 64 and 40 fantasy points. He has by far the most upside on the slate, just because he gets strikeouts and everything like that, which definitely benefit him. This doesn't show all his games here, unfortunately, but he's been really good this season as a pitcher and remarkably consistent. And then I have 2 other pitchers you could consider at this spot, and one of them is Julio Urias. He has actually been extremely consistent. He's had 1 or 2 bad games mixed in, but overall he lasts throughout the games. He gets strikeouts at a pretty good rate, not as good as Ohtani, obviously, but he's still in the 30 to 40 point range, where it's pretty comfortable. If you can if you need to save some money, he's somebody you could feel pretty comfortable with. And then the last guy is Urquidy for Houston against the Angels. He's just a good option off of them. Obviously, he's not as consistent as some guys, but the Angels don't have very much hitting available. There's really only 3 guys that are going to be able to have some real good opportunity to get to Urquidy. So if he can get around those guys, he can make a good start. Obviously, on FanDuel, pitching is not as damaged by earned runs as DraftKings is, but obviously you still got to stay in the game for long enough, and that's where Ohtani really benefits us here in this particular matchup. There's really none of the top tier pitchers that are against teams that we like to face when it comes to being a pitcher. So you're basically just trying to pick, okay, who's going to be the best today and who's been the most consistent, and that's just Ohtani. Fried has not been consistent enough, neither is Gossman or McKenzie, and of course Blake Snell is going against the Dodgers, and you can never really love anybody against the Dodgers. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into the batters. So, obviously on FanDuel, if you put Ohtani in, then you have about $3,000 per player available for the outfield, or for all the other positions. And these position players look pretty good today. We have a nice balance at every position of expensive guys and cheap guys. And on FanDuel, the expensive guys don't get all that high. I think the highest guys are in the low 4,000s. Obviously, on DraftKings, they get much higher. But overall, I think that the scoring is the pricing is really kind of gotten fair on FanDuel. So I like this setup. And we got good options across the board, top to bottom, expensive to cheap today. So, and we definitely want to try to highlight the teams that we have the most scoring opportunity at. So without that said, let's go ahead and get in the first catcher and first base situation. So my first guy I like, I'm doing these in order of price. No, I'm not actually. I was going to do that, but I'm not going to. Vlad Guerrero. He's kind of due for a big game. He hadn't hit a home run since August, 20th, I think. So he's really kind of due for one, and I expect him to have a good matchup here against Texas. Varsho is probably one of my favorite picks today for Arizona. Obviously, he had a giant game yesterday. He's been having a lot of giant games recently, and so I really look for him to continue his giant game situation against really bad pitching in Colorado, which is just a plus matchup for him overall. And another guy I really like in that same game is Christian Walker, who's absolutely just been really good as of late. He's had a couple bad games, but overall he's in a good position here. And he didn't get the home run yesterday, but I feel like he's in a better position today for Arizona. Really, probably my favorite player from Arizona today. CJ Cron is on the list of players that I think are useful. I don't like him as much as I like the other 2, but he did hit a home run yesterday. He's just been a little bit of boom or bust the last few weeks, and so he's a little bit more risky. And then Kirk for the Toronto Blue Jays. He's my favorite catcher on the board today. Now, if Jansen plays, then he'd be somebody I would say is boomer bust home run potential. Josh Naylor for the Cleveland is one of the guys I like today. He's been hitting the ball pretty well as of late. He went through a little bit of a slump, but now he's starting to hit again. So I really like him in a plus matchup. And then Will Smith is an obvious guy for the Dodgers. He has absolutely just been crushing the ball when he does hit well. But I actually like the other catcher in that game better if he does play. And then for the Dodgers, that is, which is Barnes. And then Talese is my final first baseman for Milwaukee. He's in an upside situation, but he's kind of a Hail Mary because he's kind of very boomer bust lately. But he's in a really good matchup. So with that said, let's go ahead and get in second base. Altuve is my top option. Obviously, he's got to have to deal with Ohtani. But if there's anybody that can actually hit Ohtani, it's probably this guy. But obviously, we do have to be aware his price is pretty high, and Ohtani is not somebody that we want to have to deal with too much in the bats. But he is just up there because he definitely projects well in the matchup regardless. Marcus Semien is a guy I like for Texas against Toronto. His matchup here is pretty weird, but he's been hitting the ball pretty well, and so I think he's in a plus situation. Tommy Edman is somebody I really like against Pittsburgh today. He's been hitting the ball really well as of late. He's only had a couple off games in the last 15 or so games, so he's somebody you got to consider. Brendan Rodgers is a guy that looks pretty good today, but he's been a little bit hit or miss lately, and he hadn't really been hitting the ball all that well. He definitely has upside in this matchup, but he's not ideal. But I like Brendan Donovan better than him, just because he's in a plus matchup playing a lot better than Rodgers has. And then one of my favorite plays at this position is Colton Wong. If he plays, which he may not play, he's somebody I like as a potential hitter here. Obviously kind of a boomer bust guy, but still in a good position. Overall, probably Tommy Edman, then Colton Wong, then Semien, Rodgers, Donovan, and Altuve are probably in the order that I would use these guys. So I think that's a pretty good position overall, though. At third base, it gets a little bit harder to find value, but we still have some stuff that's available. My top pick here is Josh Rojas for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's been hitting the ball well, and he's got a really good matchup today against Colorado, obviously. So definitely want to try to get some Arizona and Colorado guys in the lineup. Austin Riley looks poised to hit a home run today against George Kirby. George Kirby does not like right-handed hitters, and so that's going to play right into Austin Riley's hand. And then Justin Turner, whose price has probably come up, unfortunately, so he's not super cheap anymore, but he's in a nice little plus matchup against San Diego. And then some of my value picks here are Monterio for Colorado. So one thing you can do in stacks for Colorado is you can put some of the guys near the back of the lineup that have potential, which every guy in Colorado's got potential at home. It's just that they stink on the road. So you just have to ignore their road stats and take a look at their home stats. And this guy can do pretty good at home. It's remarkable how different guys can be, and he's one of them. So I like him quite a bit. And then Matt Chapman is another guy I like for Toronto. He's actually seems underpriced for his potential production in this game. Obviously, he doesn't have 30-point upside, but he's been hitting the ball pretty well as of late, and so I feel like he's due for another home run. And at shortstop, we have some good options. My top option is Trey Turner. He hasn't been quite as good as we'd like, but he's still hitting the ball pretty well, and he's in a plus matchup here. Another guy I like is Willie Adames, which actually his price has come down some, just because he's been a little bit boomer bust as of late. He hadn't really hit a home run in a little while, except for one. Well, no, he hadn't actually. Where is the last one? August 27th. So yeah, it's been a little while for him. He's kind of due. So hopefully he can get on that, and this is a really good plus matchup for him. He's remarkably cheap for the situation he's in. Bo Bichette is here. Obviously one of the more expensive guys, but he is absolutely just having massive games lately. Somebody you have to consider if you can afford him. Dansby Swanson. Sorry about that. Dansby Swanson is somebody I like here for Atlanta against Seattle. Again, another right-handed hitter that is going to take advantage of bad pitching against right-handed hitters. He's been hitting the ball really well. I think he's had 2 home runs the last 2 days. Tommy Edman, who I already mentioned, is in this position, so that's really good, as is Brendan Donovan. And then another guy I like for the Colorado Rockies is Alan Tracio if he plays. Again, another guy that's just so much better at home than on the road. And as you can see, he's hit the ball pretty well in the few games that he's played. And it's just a matter of him being in the game for those games. So overall, I think it's a pretty good position. Probably a better position than third base. Plenty of good available options here. In the outfield, we got quite a bit of dudes available. Overall, I think it's a pretty good position. I think there's a lot of good value options. I'd hesitate to pay up too much for some guys, but I think you can definitely mix and match some of the position players. So for obvious reasons, Mike Trout is at the top of the lineup. He has the mega potential in this matchup. He's also hit 5 home runs the last 5 games, and you don't want to miss the train. You don't want to miss the Trout trade. But one of my favorite options today, again, is Barshow, who I already mentioned, but he's also available in outfield, so he's somebody you can slot in here. You can literally slot him into 4 different positions, or 5 different spots on your lineup because of the utility spot, so you have plenty of options on how to fit him in the lineup. Ronald Acuna seems like he's kind of due for a home run in this game. He's got 10 fantasy points a game the last 10. George Springer's in a pretty plus matchup, but he hasn't been hitting the ball quite as well, but he is kind of due for a home run. It's been a little while, and I look for this matchup to be one that favors him doing that. Mookie Betts is in a good spot here for the Dodgers, but he's probably my least favorite of the more expensive guys, just because he's not in the most ideal, because he hasn't been hitting the ball quite as well. You know, he's had some boom or bust situations lately. One of my other favorite plays is Jake McCarthy, who has just absolutely been torching the ball as of late. So many good scores, and he's got 40-point upside and a plus matchup against Colorado, like he did yesterday. In fact, another guy I like is Toscar Hernandez, but only if he's back, obviously, because he's been on maternity leave. So we'll see if he comes back today. If he does, he's somebody you have to take a look at. Tyler O'Neill, as we get into the cheaper options, he looks like a plus matchup and a good situation for him for St. Louis, and he's less expensive. Though he has been kind of hit or miss as of late, he still checks out as a really good option. He's so much cheaper over here on Fanduel than on DraftKings. Alec Thomas is a guy that I like for Arizona. He hadn't been hitting the ball that well, but this is kind of the situation where you really like the potential part of the Arizona stack to throw him in there. Taylor Ward is in a good spot for the the LA Angels against Ucorde, who just sucks against right-handed hitters. And he's starting to hit the ball well again, which he goes through a little bit of a slumps, but he's starting to get going. So I like him. Josh Naylor, I already mentioned. Jake Fraley for the Cincinnati Reds against Milwaukee. He's pretty inexpensive today on FanDuel, which is surprising. He's been hitting the ball really well. So I really like him in this plus matchup. And the same can go for TJ Friedl for Cincinnati. He is absolutely just murdering the ball lately. Lots of big scores, lots of good games, home runs, etc. I really like him in this plus matchup. And then Marcell Ozuna for the Atlanta Braves. He's a very streaky hitter, but in the last few games he's been really starting to hit the ball well, and so I really like him to continue that if he does start. And then Jonathan Daza for Colorado is a guy I like. He's a little bit more risky. He's very boom or bust, but he's been booming lately, and he's in a nice plus matchup, so if he plays, he's somebody to consider. And last but not least, Michael Harris Now, he does not check out from a pitching versus batter perspective, but he literally hasn't had a game under 9 fantasy points since August 27th against St. Louis, and then you have to go back to August 21st to find another one. He has absolutely been remarkably consistent, and it doesn't seem to matter the pitchers he's going up against. Like, he's going up against good pitchers in these different situations and just hitting home runs anyway. So, like, I don't, he's just been very consistent, and so you have to consider him as an option regardless. But anyway, I think it's a really good slate. I think we got a lot of great players available. I think we got some good pitchers to choose from. Obviously, on Fanduel, it's really important to get the top tier pitchers in your lineup because you got to score the maximum points with them you can. And I think Ohtani is probably, I just don't think that there's any way you can move off him on this particular slate. So anyhow, thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. If you don't mind hitting that like and subscribe button, that would be awesome. And have a nice day, guys.